This is Life Streams, capturing our history, championing kingdom values, creating a path for future generations. In this session, Greg Wiley, author, teacher, and missionary, explores the greatness of God revealed in creation and how expanding our vision of Him strengthens our faith and perspective.
Shalom, everybody. Welcome to Life Streams. Today we're in the middle of a wonderful series of looking at the nature and character of God. And we're calling this series Encountering God because it's really what we want to do. We want to encounter Him. We want to know Him for who He is. We want to learn what it means to love Him with all of our heart, soul, strength, and mind, and to deepen the roots of our personal relationship with Him. So today we're going to be talking about the greatness of God. To tell you the truth, my goal today is to blow your minds, to expand your horizons on the greatness of God and who He really is. So when we see God in His greatness, and here's what I mean. This is from Psalm 145, verse 3. Great is the Lord. Not big is the Lord, but great is the Lord, and He is most worthy of praise. No one can measure His greatness. And hopefully by the end of our session today, you'll be so expanded in your picture and understanding of who He is that you'll be able to say no one can measure His greatness. He is almost beyond greatness. He is so incredible. And the way that we're going to begin to look at His greatness is to look at the creation of the universe. And here's the way that David describes that. The greatness of God in the universe, and the heavens, and the cosmos, and the galaxies, and the stars, and everything that we're going to look at today. The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of His hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they display knowledge. There's no speech or language where their voice is not heard. Their voice goes out into all the earth, their words to the end of the world. It's a huge testimony of God's greatness and God's creative power when He created the universe. And it's there for everybody all over the world, all throughout history. All they have to do is lift up their eyes and look at the heavens, and right there they have a testimony of who God is. We had an experience back in 2021 where we got stuck in Burundi in Africa. And while we were there, we watched the launch of the James Webb Space Telescope on Christmas Day. And one of the amazing things that happened was the head of NASA came on the program, and he began to read Psalm 19 and talk about what David saw when he looked up in the skies. And here's a guy who's the head of NASA, one of the more well-known people in the world, and he's speaking to millions and millions, perhaps tens of millions of people around the world, and he tells them that the heavens declare the glory of God. Here's an astrophysicist, a guy who knows what's out there in the heavens, and he's telling the whole world that the heavens declare the glory of God. So Genesis 1:1, the very first verse in the whole Bible, says it this way: in the beginning God, Elohim, in the beginning Elohim created the heavens and the earth. He spoke it into existence, the power of His words. But let me give you a little bit of a history of how I got interested in the universe and the cosmos and the heavens, the galaxies and the stars and everything that's out there, because it has had such an impact on my life. It's really changed me forever. But it really began back in 1995. My wife and I and our family, we were living and working in India, and we were down in New Delhi at one point, and we ran across a bookstore that had this international version of Time magazine. And this one little magazine just literally changed my life. It changed my whole perspective on who God is and how great He is. And what this magazine did is it began to talk about something called the Hubble Space Telescope. This is what it looks like. It was a telescope that they set into orbit, and it orbits around the Earth. And their thinking was, with the telescopes that we have here on Earth, we can see a certain amount of the amazing things that are out in the universe. But let's get outside of the atmosphere of the Earth. Let's send a telescope outside, and so that it orbits the Earth and can see things a lot more clearly. So they built in very high quality cameras and instruments and sent this Hubble Space Telescope out. And in 1990, they sent it into space, and it began sending back absolutely amazing photos of what's out there. So here's a few facts about our sun. It's 150 million kilometers away from us. It's 1.5 million kilometers in diameter. That's 109 times bigger than the Earth. You could take 1.3 million Earths could fit inside the sun. And the sunlight that comes off the Earth, it takes 8 minutes and 17 seconds for that sunlight to reach Earth. The sun is a flaming ball of gas. It produces nuclear fusion in the core of the sun, where it's only 27 million degrees Fahrenheit. And every second, listen to this, every second, about 700 million tons of hydrogen are converted into helium ashes. And in the process, 5 million tons of energy is released. So what that means is that as time goes on, the sun becomes lighter. The sun's energy output is 386 billion megawatts. And what that means, it's the same as the glow of 4 trillion light bulbs of 100 watts. That is a serious amount of energy. 1 second of the sun's energy could power the whole Earth's energy consumption for thousands of years. So we want to go out a little bit further, and this is one of the stars that's not too far away from us, and it's a star called Betelgeuse. And as big as our sun was, our star, Betelgeuse is 1,000 times bigger than our sun. This star, Betelgeuse, is 640 light years away from us and still in our own neighborhood, the Milky Way galaxies. So as people began to discover how big the universe was, how far things were away from us, they had to come up with a way of measuring that made sense. And so they came up with the light year. So what is a light year? Very simple. Light year is the distance that light travels in 1 year. Very obvious. So how fast does light travel? Well, to be exact, it's 186,282.397 miles every second. That is about 1 billion kilometers every hour. That's how fast light travels. So how fast is that? Let me try to give you an example of what that could look like. So let's just say that you were able to climb Mount Everest in Nepal at about 27,000 feet high. And let's just say you had a gun that was able to shoot a bullet that traveled at the speed of light. So if you were up there at the top of Mount Everest and you shot that gun, that bullet would go all the way around the Earth 7.5 times and hit you in the back before you could get out of the way. That's how fast light travels. So how far does light travel in 1 year? Well, it's about 6 trillion miles. That's 6 with 12 zeros after it, and that equals 1 light year. So how far away is Betelgeuse? Well, Betelgeuse is about 3.5 million billion miles away from us. That's 3.5 quadrillion miles. That's a serious distance away. And that's one of the closer stars to us in our own solar system. So here's a little bit of a picture of what our solar system looks like. This is our neighborhood. This is where we live. You can see that red arrow pointing towards the spot where our solar system exists. So our Earth and Mars and Venus and Saturn and Jupiter and all the planets that are all orbiting around the sun, that solar system is right at that spot in the midst of the Milky Way galaxy. And a galaxy, a simple definition of galaxy is it's a whole grouping of stars that are held together by gravity. So listen to this. Not only is our Earth spinning, and not only is our Earth orbiting around the sun, but our sun and all the planets are orbiting around the center of the Milky Way. And they're doing it at a speed of 450,000 miles per hour. So here's what happens. If you hang around long enough, it would take our solar system 250 million years to make that circuit. That's how big the Milky Way is. But here's another factor about the Milky Way. Within that Milky Way galaxy, where we live, where the Earth is, where you and I live right now, there are somewhere between 200 and 400 billion stars, at least the last time somebody counted them. And those hundreds of billions of stars that are in the Milky Way are separated by trillions of kilometers. That's how big it is. That's how vast it is. And that's just our galaxy, the Milky Way. So we're going to go out a little bit further out into the universe, still in our Milky Way, but further out than even Betelgeuse. And this is a thing called a nebula. And this is called the Eye of God Nebula. But look at the beauty of that. You can imagine why people called it the Eye of God. And this is way, way out in the heavens. This thing is 4 million billion miles away from us, and it's still in our neighborhood. And this is the one, this is called the Eagle Nebula. And this is the one that was on the front cover of Time magazine back in 1995. This is what began my whole interest in the universe and the cosmos and the heavens and the stars and the galaxies. And the Eagle Nebula is 7,000 light years away from us, which means that it's about 42 million billion miles away from us here on Earth. That is 400 million times as far away as our sun is. This is a closer-up view of the Eagle Nebula, and I wanted you to see this because they call these pillars, and these hydrogen gas pillars are, believe it or not, are 6 trillion miles high. And the little bumps that you see sticking out of this, those are the births of new stars, and those bumps are bigger than our whole solar system, the sun and the Earth and all the planets. So let's go out of the Milky Way galaxy and go to another galaxy called the Whirlpool Galaxy. And I could have given you examples of many other stars, many other nebulae, and many other galaxies, but I wanted to bring out the Whirlpool Galaxy for a reason. Number one is this galaxy is 186 billion kilometers away from us. This galaxy is called a spiral galaxy and has about 160 billion stars in it, at least the last time somebody counted it. But here's what I especially wanted you to see, because Hubble Space Telescope was able to take a picture of this. And this is the very center of that galaxy. And in the center of that galaxy is a hole of light. And in that hole of light is a figure that looks just like a cross. And that light is 600 million miles across. That's ginormous. That is so big. It's hard to imagine. And again, smoke comes out of our ears as we try to grasp what this is all about. In 1997, the Hubble Space Telescope sent some images back, and these are galaxies that are photographed that are 13 billion light years away. Believe it or not, that means that there are 78 with 21 zeros after it miles away from us. And when they first saw this image that was sent by the Hubble Space Telescope, they thought they were looking at stars. And the more they studied it and the more they analyzed this image, they realized that these are not stars. These are whole galaxies of stars. How far is that? Now, let me try to give you a little bit of a picture of what that could look like. So I'm sitting here in Tennessee in the United States, and New Delhi, India is about 8,000 miles away from where I'm sitting. The distance to the sun is about 93 million miles. Our next nearest star, which is called Alpha Centauri, is about 25 trillion miles away from us. So let's just try to imagine if you started running the day that you were born in New Delhi, India, and you ran a mile every 5 minutes, that's 12 miles an hour, and you ran 24/7, never stopped, it would take you about 650 hours to reach us here in Tennessee. So you would be 27 days old when you arrived. So if you kept running, you would be close to 1,000 years old by the time you reached our sun. And you would be 238 million years old by the time you reached Alpha Centauri. And by the time you reached one of these galaxies, you'd be about 750 with 15 zeros following it years old. That's 750 million billion years old. That's how far these galaxies are. That's how big this universe is. And what I have to say is that's all that we know right now. What's going to happen when we develop better cameras, better satellites, better ways to get pictures and discover what's really out there? The heavens declare the glory of God. It is His greatness that we see when we see pictures like this. So here's the other big question that comes up, and this is a question that plagued me for many, many years. How many stars are there in the known universe? So they used to say that there were 10 billion galaxies, but now they're saying that there are at least 200 billion galaxies of incredible variety, incredible beauty, and incredible size. And many of these galaxies have hundreds of billions of stars. Somebody said that there are more stars in the universe than grains of sand on all the seashores of Earth. And I had the hardest time believing that. My mind just wouldn't connect with that kind of, even that idea. But in 2003, God gave us a gift, and somebody handed us a newspaper that had this article in it. And I'd been struggling with this whole idea, more stars than grains of sand. Here it was in a newspaper. And it's an article about a group of Australian astronomers who did a study trying to calculate how many stars there actually were in the universe. And that's where they came up with this 76 trillion. And just try to imagine next time you walk in a sandy area, every time your foot steps down on the sand, you're talking 100,000, 100,000, 100,000. And then just try to imagine a beach that you've been at and how big it is. And what about all the beaches of the earth? What about all the deserts of the earth? How many stars are there out there? So if your mind's not blown enough yet, let me take you one step further. There are more atoms in one grain of sand than there are stars in the entire known universe. More stars than all the grains of sand on all the beaches of the world, all the deserts of the world, and one grain of sand has more atoms than all the stars in the universe. How great is our God? How magnificent is He? How glorious is He? How powerful is He? What is His mind like that He's able to do this? What power He used to speak into existence what we've seen in these slides and all that we haven't even seen that's out there in the universe. Great is the Lord and most worthy of praise. So Isaiah the prophet lived around 3,000 years ago, way, way, way before Hubble Space Telescope. But listen to what he says, and as we read this, think about what we've just looked at in these images of these nebula and these stars and these galaxies. To whom can the holy God be compared? Is there anyone else like Him? Look up at the sky. Who created the stars you see? The one who leads them out like an army. He knows how many there are. And this is a mind-boggling thing, and He calls each one of them by name. What kind of mind, what kind of intellect does that God have to be able to not only create, but know how many stars there are out there, but to name each one individually? His power is so great, not one of them is ever missing. We hope that your mind has been blown and that you'll be able to dive even further into looking at the greatness of God, and that out of that will flow a greater level of worship towards God, of trust in His character. Even if you're going through difficult, hard times right now, knowing His greatness will strengthen you. So join us in our next session, and we're going to look at God's creation of people and how He made people and the uniqueness of mankind. And we're going to look at who's holding all of this together and where this universe is headed. So join us again. Thank you for being with us on Life Streams.
This is Live Streams. If you've enjoyed today's session, be sure to like, comment, and share. And of course, you'll want to hit the subscribe button below so you never miss a new episode. Thank you for joining us.